I'm doing a TED Talk on intercultural ministry. My name's Rick. I'm the pastor of All Nations Church. And the question we're going to look at is, how do we appropriately reflect and embody the different cultures in our churches? Now, this is a vast area, so what you're going to get is the tip of the iceberg. And we're going to look at the importance, so why it matters, one key principle, and some practical first steps. So importance, why this matters. Now, a member of your church plant in the first year of launch is serving on refreshments, and they failed to turn up 30 minutes before to get everything ready. They arrived 5 minutes late before the start of church, and it's not been the first time. And they get an absolute roasting, you see this, by the team leader overseeing refreshments, because another member had to be tapped on the shoulder to set it all up because of his lateness and lack of timekeeping. And he'd actually explained why he was late, that he was really sorry, at which point a family of 5 come out of the toilet. And he said, "Oh, I've been getting to know this family, and they've heard about the church. They've been interested in coming. And, on my way to church this morning as I was walking up, I saw them in the cafe, went in, started talking, lost track of time, encouraged them to come, and they have, and here they are." And this is a real scenario. This person who was late to turn up for his duties, serving on refreshments, he was from a different cultural background. But it's interesting to observe the cultural dynamic here of task and time versus relationship. See, in the West, British culture, task, or should I say time, is generally the more important thing. I need to get here at this time in order to set up refreshments and so on, da-da-da-da-da. Whereas Eastern cultures, relationship. People is the more important thing, not time. And so the person was late on refreshments because people were more important. He got told off, but look, he brought a new family to church. And as church planters, aren't we in the business of reaching people? You get a new family come through the door, so they can hear the gospel, so their lives are transformed. I mean, that's what you want, isn't it? And if a member of your church brings a new family, it's like, brilliant, great. Refreshments, in one sense, just serves that purpose. Now, look, don't mishear me. I don't want to dismiss the importance of timekeeping or downplay following through on commitments and so on. These things are important. But here's the thing. There are going to be people in our midst who will do things differently because they are culturally different. Okay, and that will irritate and frustrate and rub you up the wrong way. Try and think about trying to pack a bunch of hedgehogs in a suitcase and give them a shake, the spikes. That's what church is like, isn't it? Different people, making mistakes and so on, but also from different cultures who think differently and do things differently. And really, I started with that sort of real life scenario just to get us to think, to raise our awareness, to get you to see that, it's not necessarily wrong, but different. And so getting us to think, well, if I'm task orientated, if, timekeeping is the thing, well, it has its strengths, but what is the strength of the relational way of doing things? What can I learn? How can I flex? How can I hold both, task and relationship in tension so we can better reach, reflect, and embody different cultures in our churches? That's why it matters. And it matters because research has shown that post-COVID, with the flexible working from home, cost of living going up, immigration on the rise, people are leaving the cities of the UK and they're settling in townships and villages across Britain. And many church leaders have observed a cultural shift with people from different nationalities and nations and cultures, moving in, and they're trying to think, well, how do we integrate? How do we just integrate them into church? How do we reach them? And so it is a really, really exciting time to church plant. That's why it matters. But also the biblical rationale. The Great Commission, what did the risen Lord Jesus say to his disciples? Matthew 28:19, go and make disciples of all nations, didn't he? Acts 1:8, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. And as the disciples obeyed the outworking, well, they went to new geographic areas, spoke the gospel in the power of the Spirit, to new people groups, people from different cultures who are not like them. And, well, what are we doing in 2025? We're writing the Acts 29 chapter in the church age. On our journey, isn't it, to the Revelation 7 reality of the future. When one day every tribe, culture, language around the throne will be around the throne, singing praises. How do we appropriately reflect and embody the different cultures in our churches? Well, we've seen why it matters. And so the key principle, the take-home message, if you remember anything, remember this. We want to understand our own cultural lies, blind spots and biases, and grow in cultural awareness so we begin to better understand other cultures. Let me unpack that. We want to understand our own cultural eyes. See, we all see the world through a cultural lens, and that colours everything. And therefore we'll have cultural blind spots, so things that we're missing, and biases. We'll have cultural prejudices. And we want to grow in cultural awareness so we better understand our cultural lens so we can understand other cultures. Which you saw from the example, it's not necessarily wrong, but different. I opened up with the task versus relationship, which is the cultural attitude to time with people. But there are others. So there's a cultural attitude, believe it or not, to queuing. Brits queue, isn't it? You have to queue up for your breakfast this morning. Your eggs and your croissant and your coffee and so on. Some cultures just push in. And you'll be waiting a long, long time if you don't push in. Now, we could say, oh, that's wrong. It's not the right way of doing it. No, it's just culturally different. Or take honour, shame versus truth. I remember it was an Indian wedding, really, really distant relative. We'd gone as a family, and I'm married to an English woman. And on the way back, I said to my wife, I really didn't want to go to that. And she said to me, well, why do you drag us out here? Why don't you just say no? And I said, well, I'd let my mum down and my family down. There was a real sense of honour. It'd be shameful for me to say no. So even though I didn't want to, I did. Or, federal versus individual, or should I say community versus individual access. Some cultures, very much the choices I make, the decisions I make, reflect well or badly on me as an individual. It's a secular culture. But actually in some cultures, the decisions I make, the choices I make, reflect not just well or badly on me as an individual, but on my family and the community that I'm in. So here are some questions of culture, to get you thinking. A new family from Southern Asia, they've arrived at your church. They've heard about the evening home groups and stuff. And the whole family, including the children, turn up to your evening home group. How do you respond? Your instinct might be, what are they doing here? Why are they not in bed? What are kids doing up? Well, is it wrong? Or is it just that they're culturally different and that's their cultural norm? I remember, when I was a missionary working overseas and, hospitality, having expats over. The expats would get babysitters, couples would come, locals, they'd bring their children. But here's some, other questions of culture. You find a homeless man sleeping in your church just as you arrive to set up for your carol service. What do? A family from India have just arrived to London or to your community or whatever, and the mum has told you that his 7-year-old, that if they don't stop biting their nails, the devil will punish them. What do you say? You're running a picnic in the park as a church. One of the mums says, I'm just going to go home and get some food, and I'll be back in half an hour. Just leave the children there in your care. I mean, what do you say? And what you'll find often, if there is a strong gut reaction, it often reveals our cultural bias and therefore blind spot. What are they doing here? Why are you pushing in? Why did they say that? Why does she go home? So we've established intercultural ministry, why it matters, a key principle, 3 practical first steps to get you going. Number 1, know the different cultures in the community, town and city you're trying to reach. Okay, not just hard data, but soft data. So, hard data is the stuff you'll be researching on, like data shine and so on. It's all graphs and tables and, census information and stuff. But soft data is what people tell you, okay? So invest time in getting to know people, names, backgrounds. How long have you been here? What brought you here? Do you think you'll move on? Why? Why do you think you'll move on? Or why do you think you'll stay? What do you love about this area? How do you love this area to change? And it's all impressions and feelings. So get your team as well, to go out and ask these questions and collect that sort of data. But number 2, be intentional in building intercultural teams that reflects the area from the outset. And remember, team, if you're starting with a small group, is 2 or more. Okay, and you'll have a leadership team, a children's team, outreach team, welcome and hospitality team, and so on. But church is body. And you'll grow in cultural awareness, not just from the community you're trying to reach, but from the Christians in your launch teams, and particularly if they're from different cultural backgrounds. It goes without saying, you want to beware of tokenism, and remember the other elements as you sort of recruit and build teams. Character, conviction, competency, chemistry, that you'll know about and stuff, as well as social status and generational differences. And then thirdly, drip feed cross-cultural thinking a little and often to your launch teams. So rather than a day on, cross-cultural stuff, 15, 30 minutes, a week, just covering a whole range of things. So, for example, welcoming. The moment someone walks through the door, welcome they receive. What do you say? What don't you say? How do you say it? Thinking about how do we communicate the gospel to an honour-shame culture. Key principle, take-home message. We want to understand our own cultural lies, blind spots and biases, and grow in cultural awareness so we understand other cultures and see it's not necessarily wrong, but different. Again, it's going to be a challenge, it's going to be hard, but we want to flex. But in those pains, let's pray that the Lord will grow us and use us and grow his church for his glory. Thank you.